and trying to compare data visualizations within the same report, kind of like breaking down the whole report into several crosstabs, analysis area, sub-analysis. In case that you are not familiar with this functionality, that's extremely useful in case that you want to compare pie charts or line charts, or you want to have two types of information from different categories within the same, let's say, view, instead of using the different sheets, right? So yeah, maybe I was, so I'm going to log in again into Moja. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. So we're going to start with that part, and when we finish, we'll jump into the Web Intelligence reports. And we decided to move the transactional reporting to tomorrow rather than starting today, because we believe that at the end of the day, for next week, what we mostly will do is the BI part. So and you already are familiar with the transactional reporting, so we will leave that for tomorrow's session. I see some people asking questions in the chat. Let me just take a look at it.
No, not so far. A couple of people are getting issue with their audio. But I'm trying to suggest two or three tips, that could help them.
Okay, thank you, Cyril. So I'm going to start right away with the analysis workspace and requisitions analysis area. Okay, so what I'm going to do basically is to create just a very simple report on for a particular mission, like I think UNISFA, for example. So this is for Dipendra, on your honor, Dipendra. So so we select the fund UNISFA. The calendar year will be 2019. As we always say, this is just an excuse for us to start working with the functionality. Okay, so I launched the report, and as we said the other day, yesterday, first let's do a bit of a cleanup. Okay, so we have to clean this report initially in case that there is some information that it's either redundant or not necessary for you. For example, here it starts with one object, which is the purchasing group. So the breakdown of all the shopping cart information is broken down by different purchasing groups in UNISFA. Okay, we have that. And then as a key figures, you see if I expand on the left panel here, which is called the data, this cube, it's the data panel where you can find the key figures and then the different objects that you can drag in and out in your report. So in the key figures, we have from shopping carts, line items, order quantity, different values in net, and then some time submit, and time to approve days, number of shopping carts submitted, stuff like that. So but let's just come up with only, let's say, one column. So I'm going to filter out everything but the net value local currency. So I will see only one column. And because I want to, basically, my idea is to compare the different shopping carts creation dates by two different fund centers. Okay, so what I want to reach is a couple of line charts in 2019 by day, so I can see whether there is some sort of correlation between the creation of shopping carts between two fund centers in the same mission. Okay, we could compare many different categories, but just for the sake of time, we will compare these category of elements. So obviously this can be expanded to so many other items from the business point of view. Okay, this is just an example. So no, sorry for that. I see Sasha. It's okay. I see. Sasha, is everything okay? Yes? Okay. So
everything is okay, Daniel. I was just talking to Sasha about something else. So
Okay, thank you. So purchasing group, it goes out because for the moment it's not important. Obviously, you see that the rows box is empty, so I don't have anything over here. So the system is telling me, oh, drop some rows here because I only have a total net value local currency from shopping carts in 2019, right? Remember that I can always enrich my prompt by clicking here in the prompt and make sure that I put calendar year 2019 and this fund corresponds to UNISFA. All right, so I close that one. So let me drag and drop the fund center. Always wise to, well, when you do not have, let's say, some hierarchy of attributes within every time you click on each of one objects, that means it gives you an error message. That means that you can just drag and drop. You see that with all the hierarchy included. So that's specifically what I don't want to. So let me just drag out again and click here, fund center, because I don't know why it doesn't. I just changed that a moment ago. Let me just close this one and open them again, the report, because I was able before to see only the object without the hierarchy. Okay, because I don't want to work with the hierarchy of the fund centers, because it makes the whole analysis a bit cumbersome with all these different levels of information. So calendar year was 2019. Fund was UNISFA. Clicking OK. So let me just try to fund center. Now you see, I click on fund centers and I do see the breakdown of different hierarchy or sub objects that I have here. I see, I don't know if someone wants to ask a question, because we do receive this noise. Maybe.
Oh, I think, Daniel, maybe someone is signing off or joining, so that's why you have the beep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Ellie Chufani has raised her hand. Maybe Ellie wants to. Let me just unmute Ellie just in case. Everything okay? Okay, you keep going.
Go ahead, Ellie. Ellie, you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Yes. Hello, Ellie? Hello, Ellie? Okay, let me just mute all, and then in case that you do have a question, just do it through the chat so I can continue with it. And yes, if you do have a question, just put it in the chat saying that you want to be unmuted rather than raising the hand, because the noise is really bothering us. So as I said before, the fund center is over here now without the hierarchy of all the fund centers. So let me just drag all the fund centers that I can find in the UNISFA and purchasing group out. Okay. So this is the breakdown of all fund centers that I can find in UNISFA and the net value local currency of the shopping carts in 2019. What I want to do here is basically filter by a fund center. Let me just use supply chain management, the fund center in UNISFA. We can use any other object. We can use cost centers and some other categories of elements, but let me just use this one for the sake of the exercise.
Yeah, and maybe after that, yeah, maybe you can just use the cost center to show how the result will be rendered, because one of the participants, is asking.
Okay, perfect. We'll do so. What we will do is I create the report, and then I will copy and paste the report, and I will swap Fan Center by Cost Center, and we'll see the difference. Okay. So what I have here, I have the Fan Center UNISFA supply chain management with the net value local currency 2019 of the shopping carts. Okay, so let me identify the creation date, created on, and I put it on my row. So I have a set of days within this year when at some point supply chain management Fan Center in this mission created one or more shopping carts with an overall amount of net value local currency in US dollars. I have, as you see, I have here two objects in my rows. I know that the Fan Center has been filtered, so always, I think it's a good idea to, now that you know that you have filtered the Fan Center, you put it in the background, so you come up with only one object and one column. And what do we do if we want to create a line chart with the net value local currency of all the requisitions by date? Anyone has an idea? We saw that yesterday. Exactly, swap, as Gianluca is saying. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swap axes. And now that I have swapped all the axes, now I can go and insert a nice line chart that will appear in this sub-analysis tab. By the way, because we're going to create several analysis and sub-analysis with the same report, it's always very interesting to put a name to this analysis instead of analysis 1 or analysis 1 sub-analysis 1 that will be a bit confusing. So what we can do, we can always go to the left panel, and in properties here, if you click on properties, you can put a name, right? In the sub-analysis here, because you see that I have clicked in the sub-analysis, and you do see a bluish line border here. That means that the sub-analysis has been selected. So then it's analysis 1, sub-analysis. I'm going to check first the analysis 1, so I'm clicking on analysis 1, and I'm going to give a name, which is supply chain Fan Center shopping carts 2019, for example. Okay, I'm going to apply, and you see that I have a title for my analysis right now, and then automatically the sub-analysis has been changed to the same title as above, but with a sub-analysis, let's say, last name. So I'm going to change that as well. So I'm clicking on the sub-analysis, and I change here the name. I'm going to put here line chart, for example. I apply a change, and you see that the supply chain, the title doesn't change. It changes kind of like the second name of the sub-analysis. So it's supply chain Fan Center shopping cart 2019 line chart. So we see that in this case we do have a peak of creation of shopping carts for this Fan Center on 25th of February this year in net value. So let's say that we want to compare and create another line chart with the same data, but for another Fan Center. So let me close that part and retrieve again all the objects and key figures. You see that sometimes it disappears if you play around with this data, so you just have to click on this data, on this cube. Once you click on the cube, you will see all the attributes, objects, and key figures of your report. Okay, so I'm going to insert a new analysis. I can do it in two ways. I'm going to do it in a kind of like a long way that I don't like, and you'll see the difference between the two, and another fast way. So first, what I can do is I can click here in this icon. If I go, I can insert a new analysis or a sub-analysis. Okay, if I insert a new analysis, I'm going to have another screen right on the top part that it's basically creating another report based on the initial prompt, right? I'm clicking here on the prompt that we saw initially, right? So it's going to create, it's going to retrieve information on shopping carts, UNISFA 2019, as we did not do anything before, right? But the only difference is that that besides the purchasing group, I have two other columns, right? And this is kind of like a strange behavior from the system, because it's taking these two objects automatically from the prompt once I insert a new analysis, and then they created on attribute that I dragged in initially in my first analysis. Okay, so in any case, what I will have to do is to clean up just a little bit this analysis and then come up with something like this, but for another fund center. So I will have to take out these two attributes, do all this fine tuning, and then I will come up with the same thing. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this. And as we saw before, you can always select the analysis that you have created. You can copy the analysis using this icon on the left panel, and then paste it using the icon just aside. And then you will come up with a copy of the same analysis with the key figures swapped with the created on attribute on the top, right? But remember that this is just a copy, right? So it's the same numbers on the left and on the right analysis. So first of all, what I'm going to do is basically clicking on the copy. You see the bluish border line over here. It's important that you understand that you have to click here on the title in order to do things, because the universe of data will be, although will be the same, but the attributes in one and the other analysis will be different. So you have to know exactly where you're clicking, right? I'm going to click on the copy. So I have my key figures. I'm not going to touch that part. The created on, I'm not going to modify anything, but what I'm going to do in the background is I'm going to change the fund center, because remember that this fund center initially corresponds to supply chain in UNISFA. So if I double click and I change from supply chain management to, for example, engineering 10554, and I click on OK, I have a copy of the report with other data. You see, I have other data, I have other days, I have other numbers. So first of all, I'm going to change this title, because these numbers, this data, corresponds to another fund center, right? So making sure that we select the analysis. We go to the left panel, properties, go and change this title, and we put here engineering. Fund Center 2019, and I apply. So what do we have here? We have one analysis for supply chain fund center, another analysis for engineering with different data, right? And below I have a sub-analysis, which is a line chart that corresponds to this. So let me annotate this just in case. This sub-analysis and this line chart, this analysis and this line chart are linked, right? So this data, it's the same data over here, but in a line chart. So I'm going to take out this part, and what I want to do is I want to create a line chart specifically for this analysis for engineering, right? And I can do it in two ways. What I could do is I can create another line chart coming from this analysis, or I can change this analysis into a line chart. Okay, so the easy way or the fastest way is selecting the analysis, and you see this icon, switch to. You can switch this view from a crosstab, it is actually now a crosstab, to a line or a column chart or a pie chart. So let me change to a line. And remember the famous slider that you have to wide up, so you have the whole report. So we changed the engineering analysis fund center with all data into a line chart that we can compare here. but it's different. The different width, and the layout is not the same, so kind of like difficult to compare, right? So sometimes what I do, it's I go to another tab, another sheet here, and I will do is I'm going to copy and paste the line chart. You see the whole line chart for engineering in the other sheet. I'm going back to the sheet number 1, and let me copy the one related to supply chain. So in a way, you can, let's say, compare now. It's a bit it's easier just to compare the two line charts between the let's say you can analyze the if there is any correlation between the creation of the shopping carts in terms of net value between the two van centers. Obviously, you can see that engineering has a more granularity in the sense of the creation. It has much more number of days, at least in 2019, right, than the one related to supply chain, right? Here, I see that it was not copied the title, so let me just put here supply chain and apply, so we can always make sure that we are comparing these two set of data. Okay, this is in sheet number 2 that you can always change the name and put a name there, like for example, line charts, and then first one you can put here some data, right? And then what we can do is we can remove this one, and then this one that was, remember, switched into a line chart, I can switch back to a cross tab, which is the data panel, let's say, right? So this is kind of a interesting feature, and let me get back to Cyril in case that we have any comment or question.
Yeah, just a quick question from a participant. There's any way to create the second in the same sub-analysis? I don't know exactly what Serge is referring by saying the second. Serge, you are just unmuted. Can you rephrase your question?
Okay, what I want to say, because yesterday when we were checking the analysis, we put 2 or 3 in the same table. So if there is any way to create the second for engineering also, the analysis of supply chain, so that we see both in the same table.
I believe.
Did you get me?
No, I think your audio is making some noise. I think there's a background noise. So if you can
Sorry.
please.
What I just want to say is okay. If we can, let's say, kind of overwrite the table for engineering with the one for supply chain, so that we'll see both lines on the same table, on the same analysis.
I get your point, yes. A little bit just as we did yesterday, right? Thank you,
That is, yeah.
Okay. Any tip anyone can ask and can answer that question? I mean, I know the answer, but I want to check with the other colleagues. Any suggestion? Remember that yesterday we played around with rows, right?
I have Birim move maybe Burim or giving a suggestion. Yes, you can do a cross time. Burim, do you want to share your comment quickly? Yeah, unmute. Burim, unmuted. Okay, Daniel, I think maybe.
Okay. Sometimes just a piece of information in case that you're not familiar with the layout in general of an analysis workspace. Sometimes you just play around with the analysis here and trying to expand the view of the analysis, so you kind of like minimize this part, especially if you have line charts like this. And then somehow the whole view of data kind of like gets lost. Please, I'm going to go to the first sheet. First, the data, if you click on this cube, will be appearing, right? Secondly, if you don't see the rows and the columns, you have to go here in Show the Layout panel. If you click here in the icon, then it will appear again, the columns, the rows, and the background, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me just copy this whole thing. Let me just copy in a third sheet to follow a search suggestion. So I'm going to copy the first data set for supply chain. And basically, if you want to see the two lines into a line chart, what I want to do basically is to visualize the fan center, the two fan centers. So for doing that, I have to get back into my rows, the fan centers, right? Initially, it was filtered only by, you see, supply chain management. So I have to add the second one, which would be engineering, clicking OK. And then I have a visual of the two fan centers, right? And the creation dates visualized in my analysis. And now, if I click on the line chart, I will see I have to always to white up my slider. What I will see, it's the two different, in this case, no lines, because as you can see, there are some blank dates between the two. So here there is no continuing creation of shopping carts within the two fan centers, right? But what we can see is that the net value local currency in UNISFA for supply chain, it's much less than the other one, right? In engineering, right? You can always put instead of 2, 3, and you can put there the office of the CMS DMS. And then I have to wait up. And then we'll have 3 in the legend with 3 colors, with 3 different lines. And then you can still add some others in case that you want to do an analysis on medical services, for example. So at the end of the day, it's just a matter of putting in the rows what you want to be visible in the report, either in the line chart or in the crosstab. Over to you, Serge, in case that you have any comment.
Okay, it's here. I got it.
Okay, thank you, Serge. So you see that this is in the sheet number 3. What we did in the line charts, we did create one line chart per fan center, so it's easier to compare, or maybe on the contrary, you think it's better to create everything into one line chart. Fair enough. But for doing that, fan centers, or the category of elements that you want to compare, they do have to be visible in the rows. Otherwise, you will not see it in your sub-analysis. So let me go back and show you another nice functionality related to this. So let's say, okay. What I'm going to do here in supply chain, I'm going to insert a line chart. So you'll see the line chart just below. And let's see that this line chart, for whatever reason, is very important for me to be present in my report. So I see the supply chain fan center shopping cart 2019. It's important there, and I wanted to leave it like that. And engineering now is not very, I can just close this part because it's not part of my analysis. So obviously, if I change things in my in the upper analysis, things will be changing here in my chart, right? So, for example, if I instead in the key figures, instead of net value local currency, put let's say net value in general, the line chart has changed, doesn't it, right? In terms of net value and net value local currency. So why, if I really want to unlink these two, right? So let's say that I'm going to take out my net value and come up with the initial sub-analysis here. What about if I want to change things in my crosstab without affecting my line chart? Okay, so if I want to do that, I go to display, I click on the sub-analysis, and here you see this on the upper menu, unlink sub-analysis. If I click on unlink sub-analysis, the system, it's kind of like a froze. It's going to froze this part, this line chart, and whatever we do in our supply chain analysis here in the crosstab will not affect the line chart. So it's like we are kind of like disconnecting these two analyses. So let me just, so by clicking there, I cannot annotate here. Let me just, I thought I could just write something. Just bear with me. Okay, I cannot annotate. I wanted to just put here an X, so the link between the analysis and the sub-analysis, it's removed. So how can I check that? Okay, for example, I'm going to insert in the key figures my net value, and you'll see that it will have here another element. Oh, now it's linked. How come? Because sorry for that. Because I was selecting, that's why it happens a lot. I was expecting the modification to be done in my analysis in the upper panel, but it was in the line because I did not select the analysis and I kept selected my sub-analysis. So that's important, really. If you want to move between analysis and sub-analysis, please bear in mind where you're clicking. And you do see what you're clicking when you see this border bluish line. So let me just undo what I was doing, net value over here. So now we have our sub-analysis there. And now I click on the analysis. Now I make sure that this is what I want to modify. I click on the key figures. I include my net value. And you see that my line chart has not been modified. What I do see here is two key figures, net value local currency and net value only. Right, that's pretty much the same. The only difference is during I think 2 or 3 dates we have different currency in terms of net value and US dollars. Okay, so that's important in case that you want to kind of like lock a specific analysis or sub-analysis. What you do is you just link or unlink the sub. It's linked by default, but what to do is to unlink it. That's quite an important features, especially if you're working with different sets of data within the same report, and for whatever reason you want to modify a specific crosstab without affecting the other sub-analysis. I stop it here, and do you have any comment or any question, Cyril?
No question so far.
Okay. So I hope that was clear. It's just at the end of today, guys, it's just a matter of practicing, right? It's just a matter of moving around with the different tabs. Thank you, Kiran. I know you know these things because we practice during some academies. So, but at the end of the day, it's just a matter of practicing, launching your report, and click on the sub-analysis creating your line charts and linking, and then if you do have any encounter any issue, then we can just see what's going on, right? But at the end of the day, it's basically the same thing. You do not have, like, in practical terms, so many other options, right? I mean, in terms of analyzing, you can filter, you can sort, insert a calculation, put a conditional formatting, right? In terms of insert data visualization, you can insert a new analysis or a sub-analysis, or you can insert data visualization artifacts like a pie chart, a line chart, a cluster column. You can switch a line chart into a pie chart. In this case, it doesn't make sense, right? Why? Why do I have so many pie charts here? Because remember, I had in my columns created dates, and I had so many dates there. I have from 5th of January, 6, 7, 9, 10. So all these are columns. So if I put pie charts, I will have as many pie charts as columns in my reports. And remember that I switched the object with the key figures. If I want to undo my switch, I have to go display, swap access. I have to go to display, re-swap again, and then I will have my analysis here. Why this has not changed? Because remember, guys, what I did is I unlink these two analysis and sub-analysis. And then in display, I have stuff like removing nulls and zeros in the columns on my reports, putting the totals in the upper part. Like, for example, if I want to insert a total, right here, it's 10 millions for the overall 2019 dates of creation of shopping carts. So it's just a matter of, do you want the position totals after or before the members? Before the members is on the top part. After the members, you'll see the total if I scroll down all over to the end, right? Really not much more to say. Conditional formatting, I think it's quite straightforward. Basically, you select the column of the object. Remember that you always have to not the object, the key figure. You always put the conditional formatting in the key figure, in the numbers, right? So conditional formatting, you create a new conditional formatting, and this is kind of like a filtering option. You put a name in case that you want to put a name in the conditional formatting, but it will not appear over here. So you can leave it like that. You can put the conditional formatting based on the different key figures, right? Not only the one present, but the other ones in your report. Here we only have one present, net value local currency, so we leave it like that. You can either change the background of the cell, change the color of the value, or put a symbol there. Usually what we do is we put the background we change. And then you have set of colors. You can put different colors based on your perspective, and then you put a condition if it is greater or if it is less than, equal to, outside, between a range. So for example, if it is greater than let's say 50,000. I'm sorry, something happened here. Okay, the keyboard. So it's 50,000. So I put 50,000. I add the conditional formatting, so the rule is created. If I want to see a preview of my display, I click here on the match code, and I don't see nothing's changed. 50,000. Value, local currency should be there. Cell background greater than. Let me just do it again because there was some resizing part. So key figures. You can create a conditional formatting by right-clicking. Net value, local currency, cell background greater than. at.
What you're doing also, Daniel, maybe you can also show how you move up and down the reports, and maybe also if you want to run a report for 2 consecutive years, how do you add a filter for, let's say, for example, for 2018 and 2019 and 2020 if you don't report 3?
Yeah, okay. We can do that for next week, because the idea now is to go through the different functionalities, but obviously you can compare not only the creation date, but the year or some other category of elements. We'll leave it for you, so you can play around with these features, because we have to move to the Web Intelligence reports, but we will have time. We will do as you suggest to compare different years. So just for the sake of finalizing the other features and things that you can do in the analysis workspaces is the conditional formatting. See that every single figure over $50,000 has the red background in the cell, you see. In case that you like, and you, yes, Cyril? Hi? Yeah. Okay. So, so that's what I wanted to show in workspaces. Okay. Then, yes. Let's say if I want to save, okay, because I think we didn't save our report. This is just fine, okay. So I think that this report should be it's more than enough for today. So I want to save it, right? So remember always to save the prompt values with the workspace. So this is clicked. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I go to the floppy disk, and I don't know why this is not working. Ah, here we go, save as. And then very important, automatically comes by your My Documents, but sometimes if you click here in the folders, what you see here, it's basically production environment. So this is the production, the different reports that you can find all over the place for real estate, for example. So you imagine that I don't realize and I just clicked on the folder in production and I want to save it there. And I click on save. I will have obviously an error message, because if I was able to save in production automatically, I mean, God knows how it would look, the Umoja BI in production, right? So only the official reports already, let's say, approved by the business are the ones published in Umoja BI, right? So I cannot save any report that I had created, but in the folders view, but I can go to my documents always. I can create a folder, for example, Valencia. And I do suggest you guys to create a subfolder for the next week or for now, so you can actually store your exercise and put different documents in case that you think it's necessary. So here's the Valencia Academy. I can put a file name here, shopping carts, tab, demo, exercise, and I can save. So now it's been saved. If I go to my documents over here, it's not straightforward, right? Because you see production environment over here, and it's only small line over on the top, my documents, that you can find your reports. I have my Valencia Academy subfolder. If I double click, I can see my supply chain demo exercise that I had just created. Okay. Remember that this analysis workspace cannot be scheduled, and we will go through the scheduling functionality right away. So any analysis workspace cannot be scheduled to be sent to your inbox but obviously what you can do always is to export, and that's something that we hadn't covered so far. and I think it's important that we do it now, although we will do it for the web as well. If you want to export your report, you will have to click here on those, let's say, a small box with the arrow over there. You can export to PDF or different options of Excel. What do we have here? The system is asking me, okay, I see that you have created several reports in several sheets, right? First one was called data, here data. Second one is called line chart, and third is sheet number 3. And within each of the sheets, I do have an analysis and then a sub-analysis, and you see that the icon changes, right, from a cross tab to a line chart. So the system is asking me whether I do want to export everything or only a particular sheet. Let me just export the whole report. We have different options. If you want to repeat outer header members, include linked cross tabs and charts, right? If I unclick this part, all the sub-analysis will be removed, but I want to include everything there. And export key and text values and as a separate columns in case that you want to do that. So I click in OK. And let's see how it looks. Usually what I export into Excel, it's more web intelligence reports. You see that it's there underneath. You can open this file into Excel. Okay, so let me open. I hope you see. Remember, what we have here are, we had initially 3 tabs: data, line charts, and sheet. Let me go to Excel. Here I have my first supply chain fun center shopping cart 2019. What I have here, it's the cross tab. Okay, let me go back here. I have this cross tab with net value, local currency. Net value, local currency. In the second sheet in Excel, what I will have, it's the prompt, kind of like a summary of the prompt, right? Remember, I put calendar year 2019. I put as a font UNISFA. The rest, I didn't do anything, right? And the third sheet will be the line chart. And to be honest, this is just a picture, right? I mean, you cannot play around with this graph. So it's just okay. I mean, it's just a picture of the line chart, kind of like it looks better in Umoja BI rather than in Excel, but at least you have a piece of art into Excel. So at the end of the day, what you're going to have for each of the sheets in BI, in this case data, when you export to Excel, you're going to come up with at least 2 sheets. First one, the analysis. Second one, a summary of the prompt. And third one, in case that you have created a line chart, if you have created a sub-analysis, it will be exported in a separate sheet. But remember that all the artifacts, data visualization artifacts, will be exported as an image. So not much really what you can do with this image, besides cropping, or besides expanding or minimizing this image. And the same will correspond to the other tabs, right? Remember that this is the tab related to line charts. Here, the second sheet in BI, it's the key figures with conditional formatting. So I have the same key figures and the conditional formatting has been applied. Problem is that it's a bit difficult to undo the conditional formatting, right? So kind of like states the conditional formatting. So before you do export, in case that you don't want to be all these cells, you know, kind of like with red background, you may want to undo the conditional formatting initially here and export again, and so on and so forth, right? I have another line chart over here. Something that I wanted to show to you. It's for example, this column. It's okay. Okay. So rule of thumb: if whatever I do export in BI, it's what I'm going to see in Excel in this case. Meaning that if in case that you see a formula, and there is a formula embedded here in this analysis, right? The overall result is over $10 million in net value local currency for all 2019 in engineering fund center. When I see this $10 million as an overall result in Excel, this is just a number. You see this? It's a number. So the formula itself hasn't been exported. So if you want to really create a formula over here, you have to do it again. So the 10 million now, excuse me for that. No, I don't want to. Let me just close this part. So the 10 million now is being converted into a formula because I did it in Excel. Because it didn't, let me just undo. You see, I undo the whole thing. Initially, it comes only with a number. So in case that you change this, for example, for whatever reason, I change this number, then the overall result will not be changed because this is not a formula. Okay, so what you see is what you get, not only numbers, but as well, and in conditional formatting in this case, but as well in the formula and overall result. And this is applicable to the Web Intelligence reports. Very, very important, because sometimes you kind of like think, especially if you have subtotals and totals in your Web Intelligence reports and in your analysis workspace, then you tend to think, okay, let me export it to Excel and play around with the data. And at some point that you realize that the overall results or the percentage or some other formula is not being modified besides all these changes that you have been doing previously in Excel. So please bear in mind that the formulas will never be exported, only the number itself. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say in order to close up the AWS part. In case that you have any further question, we have a support session at 2 o'clock Valencia time today, in case that you think it's necessary to go through any other feature or this feature. And some others for analysis workspaces. So I think we have another hour to go through the Web Intelligence reports. They are more straightforward. So if I can ask you guys to break for 5 minutes, it's 10:55 in Valencia. At 11, we will resume with the Web Intelligence reports. We hope that this was fruitful and this was practical for you. All the AWS session yesterday and today, and I think we will be back in 5, right? So 5 minutes break, and then we will get back. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Probably was more than 5 minutes, but we needed a bit more time, I guess. Yesterday's selecting. I'm just going through the chat while Cyril is just on break. Yesterday was not working. Octash. I was just selecting. I hope Octash, everything is okay now. Because I do see that some of you are in parallel, kind of like doing the same demo or testing the same functionality. Thank you, Octave. I'm going to move back to the Web Intelligence reports. And for doing that, I'm going to go into production. So in Search to Acquire in this folder, you should all be familiar already with this folder. We have a set of analysis workspaces. We have the solicitations analysis area, vendor requisitions that we just used, PO analysis area, the one that we did yesterday, contracts analysis area, and the supply chain end-to-end that basically we will not use because it's not giving you accurate data. I resume okay. Welcome, Cyril. So we're now going to focus on the Web Intelligence reports. The idea is not to focus from the business point of view. We will not focus there, but we will focus on the different functionalities that we can find. Let me just open one, the contract target value. So what we can expect from this report, you see that it's already predefined. So you do have the different items already predefined. Obviously, if you are very advanced users and you have the rights, you can always go and design from the scratch or modify this report as you deem necessary, connecting with different data sources, but that will not be the scope of the training. But we want to make sure that you do know very well how to use the Web Intelligence reports, not the designing of the Web Intelligence reports, but how to use it, and then how to use the analysis workspaces as well. So how do we populate with data this Web Intelligence report? Sometimes it pops up the prompt, sometimes it doesn't. In case that you want to force the prompt to pop up, you click on refresh, and automatically you'll see the prompt available there for you. So here, very straightforward, the prompt, let's say, for example, the validity. So in this case, it's a contract target value report. So we're going to have within a range of time, which are the contracts with the status and the percentage of release of each of the contracts by a particular mission or location or even a supplier, right? So invalid from, going to put there, for example, 21st of May 2016, for example. Okay. So I'm going to put a very wide range of time, 21st of 19 as well. Valid to, I'm going to put the range of data of 21 of May of 2017, for example, and then 21 of May 2022. Right? We have contract, supplier, allocation, and then purchasing group as well. But this range of time are the two master data elements really compulsory, right? If I click here on OK, I will actually get all the contracts from all over the place without even not limited to any purchasing group or even a supplier or a contract or location, but everything that the system finds. So let's identify the purchasing group only for MONUSCO, just as an example. So I'm going to refresh the values. There I will find, and let me open this a little bit more, I'll find all the purchasing groups that the system identifies. You see that the MONUSCO is there, so I can select from procurement unit 1 to number 8. Let me see what happened here. Okay, so it's and then in case I want to exactly look for MONUSCO, I make sure that I don't have more procurement and I haven't missed any other procurement on it. Let me just look for MONUSCO and make sure that I'm not searching in key but in text. So yes, the system understands that there are 8. These are the ones that I selected previously. So it's perfect. Now I selected all the purchasing groups for MONUSCO, and this is the validity range of time that I had set up, and I click in OK. So first, what we're going to do basically is to get familiar with the layout of any of the Web Intelligence reports. You see that basically in one page you have all the data already populated. First with the purchasing group. If I scroll down, I see that this is a very long report, right? So I have a breakdown of all the contracts in MONUSCO by purchasing group with information of the supplier, which is the country, smart number of the contract, which is the contract ID, the status of the contract, expiry date, target value in US dollars, release value in US dollars, which is the balance between these two, and the percentage released and the days to expiry. And there is a, let's say, color code that will identify basically if you are closed or reaching the released value. In this case, actually, what I see is that every time that it's 0, it's in green. If it is not 0, then you'll see in red, right? And in days to expire, it's in case that it's red, so it has a minus, so it's already expired. In this case, we know that it's been expired, but because the contract status says so, but it's red. And then if you do have some days still left to be expired for the contract, then it's green, right? And then in orange, if that certain range of time is below 100 days, right, I believe. So that's a bit of the information that we can find initially. If you go all the way to the down, here you'll find which is the summary of the initial prompt, right? So in case that you have doubts on what you clicked initially, you know that you selected purchasing group for MONUSCO, 8 of them, and this is the range of dates that I used, validity from and to, and I did not put any information for the other 3 items. Yes, Cyril?
Yes, Daniel, on the validity of date, just to take Sasha's point, you're absolutely right, Sasha. If you want to have all the contracts, you should select, the date starting from 1900, so 199, which is the standard date for the system, the beginning date for the system, and ending at 999, which is also the standard. So for all the participants to know, if you want to get all the contract valid, the entire contract set, you should select, the date starting in 1900 to December 999. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Cyril, and thank you, Sasha. Yes, yeah, I only put because I didn't want to come up with a huge report. What I did is I limited the set of data. Okay, but obviously that's a good point, Sasha, for that. Always, taking care of the business as well. Thank you. So basically, you have a subtotal here by each of the procurement units. Please bear in mind, and I will do it right away, I'm going to export to Excel, so you'll see that this is a pretty neat and nice report, but if I do and I export to Excel, actually the Excel file that I will see, kind of like looks pretty well as well. And you'll see, this is the other export. You see, this is the same report, but in Excel. It does really look very much without your logo, right? But it looks pretty much the same. Even the font and the format has not been modified. So you can always, as a tip, you can always click in any of the cells of your report, click on Control T, and you automatically create a table in Excel. Right? But bear in mind that, and I wanted to show this especially, sometimes when you do have some empty rows, you see, empty rows here between the different procurement units, Excel will only identify the tables up until those blank rows. So I have a table only here. So if I want to create a table for this whole report, I will have to get rid of all these blank rows, and from there I will see all my information in a nice table that I can sort. I can include automatically the formats and so on and so forth. So Please bear in mind that, as I said before, I'm going to put this in yellow, this subtotal is not being calculated. I mean, it's extracting the figure itself, but not the formula. So this 8 million for the total value local currency is just a figure, it's not a formula. So if you want to create a formula, you do have to create it yourself in Excel. Okay. Now it's there, the subtotal, and the same you can apply for the rest. Okay, so please bear in mind, pay attention to this, because I know that a lot of you are using Excel coming from web intelligence reports, and these things sometimes, you know, kind of like gives you a headache. And as well, if you want to extract into Excel the web intelligence report and use Power BI, the same thing. So please bear in mind that, and in Power BI, the same thing. You really have to understand that you need to have a set of data that has no blank rows or cells, because otherwise the search file in Excel will be not the whole set of records, but the one that Power BI, for example, selects up until a blank row or a blank column, right? So always try to just clean a little bit for the formulas point of view and for the blank rows point of view. Like this, for example, if you want to export and have a nice table, you will have to be deleting pretty much all these blank rows that you will be identifying between each of the procurement units. Okay. So let me go back to the report. I hope that was clear. The same thing for PDF. If you want to export to PDF, here not really difficult, because you basically cannot do anything else. Let me just drag. So this is how it looks. Good thing, because you still have the logo, so you can always print out, pin on your wall, or hand out to another stakeholder, because this is actually official information coming from the UN. Okay.
So Daniel, could you show back again how you clear the blank rows in cell? How do you erase all the blank cells and row? One participant want to know.
I was muted, sorry. I was just talking. Thank you, Cyril. So I'm going to export again to Excel. Here I have my let's say the header, right, that stays there. You see that there is here I don't have data over here. They have subtotals. What I would do if I want to create a table or modify a table before I put it into Power BI, I will have to delete all these blank rows, even the subtotals as well. I think I only have here more, because initially I only removed, I think, 2 or 3 of them. So now even here as well, I'm going to delete this part. So I think that I have my table, let's say the whole report already cleaned up. And then if I click on Control T, automatically the system, you see that the dashed line that the system understands that it might be a table, it goes all the way to the end, you see? I click on OK, and I do have a nice, you kind of like are putting some protein into Excel in just one click. Control T, and automatically you have a filter created for each of the columns. And you can actually play around much better with each of the columns and in the information as well. For example, you can select one or two purchasing groups and only have that piece of information, and then you can insert and play around with the data. So just bear in mind, only for creating tables and using Power BI, much better to remove all the blank spaces, blank rows, blank cells, not cells, the columns, if you have a one straight column, so you make sure that wherever you're exporting, wherever you're creating in terms of table and wherever you are going to get from the Excel point of view into Power BI, it's the set of records that you want. Can I create a table for a part of the report? Exactly, Tony. You can create just a table for a part of the report by, let me just undo part of these items. You see that this is the initial. Here we don't have a table, right? And I don't think we have a blank space. So I put Control T. So you see that now I can select. If I click here, I select whatever I want to be present in my table, right? So you see that the set of data automatically comes by each of the procurement groups. So the first one, if I want to create a table only for the first procurement group, it will be just like that, selecting all that. If I want to create my table for more, it will be just a matter of selecting whatever I think is necessary. Okay, from there I click in OK. Okay, but really, Tony, it wouldn't really. You will have to be very cautious if you want to create a table only with one set of data, because because you have to make sure that the part of the data that is not going to be present in the table will not be present in your analysis. So just bear in mind those things. Okay. So that's part of exporting. We do know that you guys, and we do as well, from the training point of view, we do export to Excel a lot. So those small tips are very, very important for you to know in case that you didn't know. Then more things that you can do, not only in this report, but in all web intelligence reports, you can filter, right? But if you click on the filter bar, automatically you'll see a small line over here with an icon that says click icon to add simple report filters. If I click on the icon, I'll see others, and there, only there, I will be able to select the filter that I want to use. Okay. So if I want to select supplier, then I will see a drop down only for all values or supplier. So if I click on the drop down, I will be able to select the supplier that I want to use, right? And I will see only the supplier selected one at a time. You cannot select several suppliers within the same filter. Okay, but what you can do is you can just remove the whole thing by clicking on the last. Always the last item in your filter will be the option remove, and then you will be removing the whole filter. On the contrary, you can create not only one location, right? But you can create more filters by clicking again on the icon, others, valid 2, for example, and you can just play around with filters. So you can create as many filters as you want. These are kind of like the data filters that you create in Excel, but you do it one by one. Okay. In terms of freezing columns, sometimes when you're scrolling down, you don't see, you kind of like lose the headers, right? So freeze columns, you click on the freeze header rows. If you select freeze header rows, every time that you scroll down, you see the header stays there. So you have a perspective of what you are seeing in terms of data. Purchasing group, supplier, country. The same will be applicable not only for the rows, but for the columns, right? In case that you want to, let's say, you have a very wide report with so many columns that you have to scroll to your right and to your left, you can froze 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 columns. So you have always a good perspective of the data that you are scrolling up and down. More things. Send to a user. For example, let's say that I do want to send this report in BI, I mean always in BI, and I want to send it to another user. How do I do that? So if I remember well, this is this envelope. I click on the drop down, and you can send to email, you can send to an user. Okay. The problem here in sending to an email, if you send this to an email, I'm going to select this. Several problems here. It's because here I have because I did some testing here. You have to select the from and to, and then you can even put a subject or a message, and then click on send. First thing, this report will never be sent because you have always to save your report first. Okay, so I have to save my report first. Click on save. Always in my favorites, public folders no, because the system will not allow me to do so. Favorites folder. Within Valencia Academy, for example, contract added value, demo, and you can save only as a web intelligence report, save. So now it's saved, and now I can send it to an user, or I can send them to an email. The problem is like, if I send it to an email, as I did before, the file that, in this case, myself, is going to receive, it's a file that cannot be opened automatically if you double click in Outlook. So it's not practical whatsoever. It's kind of like the file, the extension that it's assigned to the web intelligence reports. And I talked with our BI developers here in Valencia, and apparently we do not have, as the UN has not purchased the functionality of basically double-clicking these type of files, and our software that recognizes automatically that this is a web intelligence report, and then it will see. But on the contrary, what you can do is you can send to another user, send to a user. What this means? This means that when you click on user, you see a list of all the portfolio of users that have access to BI, right? And this is starting with an A. And this is kind of a bit of cumbersome because it's not really straightforward. You have to be very cautious in the way you are using the case, whether it's uppercase, lowercase, when you're finding someone. First, it's much better to, instead of full name, that you have two columns here, the full name, and then the title. Basically, the title will be the EADMS extension or your user name in Umoja. So if I put here Di Criado, which is my my user, and I click on the binoculars, the system will find me, right? Because it's P1W100, which is the production environment in BI, and then / my username and full name Daniel Criado Cortázar. Okay, if I want to send it to myself, I found myself, so I click this arrow, and now I have selected my recipient, and I click on send. Okay, so I'm going to send it to myself. I'm going to send it to. Can anyone share EADMS credentials? Let's say, for example, let's say this finds like excuse me. EN. Okay, let me just use this one with the asterisk. Let's see if it works. No. Just for the sake of sending to any of you. I think that Kiram share title. Let me just.
Thank you for sharing. You received a couple of them, so.
Oh. Okay. Copy. So sorry for that. I'm going to put it to. I think that's Kidran or Kiran. Kiran Pairal. So I select there and I send it to him. So basically, what I'm going to do, when I'm doing it, I'm sending to another user. So this user, first, it's in BI because I found this user. But secondly, he or she, in this case Kiran or myself, will have to retrieve this report in your documents, right? So what I usually do is go to Home, the Home tab, And in home, I have a breakdown of different type of views. First, my recently viewed documents. So all the documents that I have viewed in BI are stored on the left panel. My recently run documents, in this case reports, 10 unread messages in my inbox. You see that the demo, this is the contract target value demo. It's a message, but actually contains a report. And this report, I know it's a Web Intelligence report because I see this icon, right? Which is the same that this one. It's a Web Intelligence. On the other hand, the other is the AWS. So if I click there on the message, I will see the report automatically appearing, right? So because I sent the report to Kiran probably is logged into BI, and probably he will retrieve the same report that I just created. So in case that's a way to share, in a way, without the share analysis area, you can always share your reports by finding the user into the BI portfolio of users. But bear in mind that sometimes it's kind of tricky, right? This part. When you are sending to a user and you have to look up for a specific, let's say, user, use the title, because sometimes, for example, if instead of the title, I'm using the find full name, and I put here, for example, Momo for Cyril, trying to look, sometimes it doesn't really find the user. Or actually, even the functionality doesn't really work. So still, this is something that you have to handle kind of like with care, in a way that you have to know which is the title or the EADMS or username of the person that you want to share the report with, and use instead of full name, the title itself. Okay, because if I put, is CMAMO, right? Yours. Yeah, and sometimes when you're looking for someone and then it doesn't work, you have to close and open again the functionality, right? So, well, not so straightforward, but in a way, kind of like works. You see, I closed, I opened, I look for Cyril, in this case, right? And I can send the report. So as long as you know the user ID of your colleague or of some colleagues, then you will be able to find them, look them up, and then send the report. And first, very importantly, you have to save your report in your documents. Otherwise, you will send something that is blank. So they will contain no data. Then let's say that you want to look for a specific, let's say, concept in terms of supplier or a title or a smart number. You can always click on the binoculars, and you see a search bar appears at the bottom of the report. From there, you can ignore or match the case. You can put like rental, for example, vehicle rental or something like that. You see the rental, it's within a smart number. So yes, you can find next in case there is another one or previous. So within the report itself, you can look up for a specific concept. Okay, that's specifically special of interest if you have a long report and you don't want to use the filter, or you want to go for a specific, I don't know, contract ID, and you want to look it up. You can always use Control F or these binoculars. Find. More things I wanted to show to you before we finish. Probably a scheduling part, in case that you don't know. Remember that what I did is I saved this report, right? So let me close it. And I'm going to go to my documents. My documents over there in Valencia Academy, I have two. I have the demo, supply chain demo exercise that we did earlier this morning, and then the second one, which is the contract target value demo. This one, this web intelligence report, this one I can schedule, right? Meaning that if I right click and I click on scheduling, Then I will have to fill in a set of fields, and once I properly set them up, then I will be able to schedule my reports. Okay, first thing, when you schedule the report, you have to put a title that automatically comes by default, the title that you put when you saved initially your report. Okay, secondly, if you want to change, you can change. If you want to leave it like that, up to you. Recurrence. This is the frequency that you are going to set up in order to schedule your report. You can run the object, the report itself now, or you have some other possibilities, like once, early, daily, weekly, monthly, particular day of the month, the first Monday of the month, last day of the month, a specific day of a specific week of the month, or that you can use the calendar. Okay. Well, running the object now doesn't really make sense, meaning that if I run the object now and I click on schedule, I will see the report, but that's the same thing like launching the report, right? So it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but still you have it as an option. What I would recommend you, if you are not familiar yet with this functionality, it's basically to click it once. So do it once, so you are going to run this report only once. And then you have to set up the date. This is today's date, Brindisi Valencia time. And this is the time that will be appearing in your screen, regardless of your time zone. So for example, if you are in UNISFA, or you are in Somalia, or you are in Colombia, the time that you'll see in terms of recurrence will be the one related or where the servers are located here in Valencia, replicated in Brindisi. Okay, that's important. So when you set the time, you have to bear in mind that this is the time for Brindisi, Central European Time, and Valencia. This is the date exactly where you want the report to be run. You can set up today or some days after. Basically, the start and end date will be the same. Basically, that if I put here 11:40, for example, 11:40. Now it's 11:36. 11:40, and I put here 11:40 or 54. It doesn't really make sense because the run is going to be starting in 11:40, and 14 minutes later it's going to end. This really doesn't make a difference today because the same data for this report will be appearing at 11:40 or 11:54. Another story will be if I put here another day. If it starts at 11:40 from today and finishes tomorrow, then the data will be changed because you know that it is a data dump every single day from ECC SRM into BI. So usually, good practice is basically putting the same time, right? Same date as well, and then you select the prompt. This is a way to modify the initial prompt. Sometimes it takes a little bit when you click here in prompt, but you can modify the initial values of the prompt. The system retrieves what I did initially. Remember that I selected the 8 procurement units in MONUSCO and the validity and from and to of the contracts. I'm not going to change, but you can always modify the prompt formats. You may want to use either Excel or PDF. The other 3 will not change. Will not be working because Web Intelligence reports. It's the format that I told you before. That when you send to a mail a Web Intelligence report automatically from BI, this weird extension is not recognized by the UN. So even though that you will retrieve a file, you will not be able to open that file up. But on the contrary, Excel and PDF are working. So I can put it in Excel, for example, as a format. Catching and events are fields that we are not covering. The same in case that you do have a server group. Not really important. And then we jump finally to destinations. Destinations you can send to a BI inbox. That basically is the same to sending to another user inbox in BI. We did that with another functionality just before, which is really interesting, is using the email. If you click an email, then you'll have the possibility of sending to yourself or even to it's Momosi, your email, Cyril. Let me just put Cyril's email as well. Okay, this is a test, and then let me just close this part. And you can put a message, and even you can add an attachment and so on and so forth. So basically, remember that you have to fill in the title in case you want, the recurrence, very important, modify the prompt, which is the format you want, and then the destinations, and then you schedule the report. Remember that we only set this recurrence to once, so Cyril and myself will receive it only once today, and automatically you'll see the history of the scheduling of this report. It's in Excel. This is the time that I set up, instance time. This is the title of the report, status pending, because we have not reached 1140. This is the person who created the report. The tab is a Microsoft Excel. You can close this part, and then the report it's been running in the background. If you want to come up to the same or to want to reach the same history page that I just closed, you have to select the report itself and go to history. Right click, you go to history, and you'll see it loads, and you'll see the status of this scheduling, right? You can always select and pause or reschedule the report if you want, okay? So there are ways to modify all these things. And in case that you have more than one report or, to be scheduled, you will see all these different lines already filled in. Just handle with care this functionality, because if you do not know very well, you may come up scheduling a report without even realizing, with no end. For example, some people started to schedule reports without realizing that they will receive it, or someone else will receive it every single day without any end date. So you are forcing the system to create a report and send a report, create a report and send a report. So that may affect, believe me or not, but that affects, if we do it a lot of users do it at the same time, that may affect the whole performance of Mojave AI. So that's quite interesting, because in case that, as I said, the Web Intelligence reports, excuse me, this second one, this tab, are very straightforward, already pre-formatted. It's information to be consumed right away without even designing anything else. And if you do want to monitor the status of contracts, date to expire, balance, by purchasing group, every single Monday of the week, you can schedule this report and some others to be present in your email in Excel or PDF. So basically it will be a matter of, setting once with an end and with an start and end date, and then the system will do all the work for you. Do we have any questions, Cyril? Any comments? Because I saw several pop-ups, but I guess that you took care of it.
Yes, I think a couple of questions that I've been responding, in the background. So, but that's fine. On prompts, what can you modify? So all taken care of. So.
Yes, I have another. Sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize. This is another report. It's not related specifically to supply chain. This is for budget. But because in case that you find out or someone gives to you a report with a particular hierarchy, okay, this is just a functionality when you export, okay, but just wants you to give you a heads up. You see that this part, the commitment item column here, it has some sort of hierarchy embedded, right? So within the first line, I have several childs, let's say, just underneath, and the information is spread out on different columns. If I export to Excel, and with this, I think we are covering all the exporting options. And we thought that this is important because eventually you guys are really exporting your reports. This is how it looks. Okay, it looks pretty much the same, but I just want you to realize one thing. Let me go back to the what this thing. Okay, let me go back to BI. Okay, so this is what I wanted to underline, and let me see if I can annotate so it's clear. Okay, so you see that I have here a hierarchy. So there are some fathers and childs, or mothers and childs here. Okay, so these different lines represent different items within one line, right? If I export to Excel, okay, I do not see in the first column this hierarchy. All right, so if I'm not familiar with the hierarchy, I may think that these items are different. These 320,000 are different items coming from different lines. But on the contrary, it's just in this case the appropriation part that you see the total is the same, right? So eventually, if you find different lines within a line when you export to Excel, bear in mind that all of them, and I repeat, all of them appear in the same line. So you do not realize that there is a hierarchy embedded within Excel. Okay, this is not happening a lot in the supply chain reports. This is happening more on the funds management or finance reports because we have two groups and subgroups of commitment items and appropriation and stuff like that. But just for you to realize, and in case that you are actually handling this type of reports as well. Or on the contrary, if someone creates a report, a web intelligence reports with some sort of hierarchy, and then you automatically export to Excel, bear in mind that the first of the columns will be aligned, and the hierarchy will kind of like not be visible in your first site, right? So just kind of like a heads up. So just like as a summary in terms of exporting, remember that the formulas are not exported, that the conditional formatting, if you do apply, it's exported and difficult to remove afterwards, that the hierarchy is not exported in a way, so just everything, all the lines will be in the same type of level. And that you will have to, once you schedule your report, you do have to save first, as well as if you want to send to another user, you will have to save your report first. Otherwise, the system will allow you, if you haven't saved before, but the report that the other user is going to receive is going to be blank. It's going to have only the header part without any data underneath. Before we move to the last part, do we have any question, Cyril?
Not really a question, but just asking how the hierarchy is visible in Excel. So if you go back in Excel, you can see how the hierarchy is visible in Excel. You can.
Well, the hierarchy now it's not visible, as I said, when you export to Excel. All the different line items here are within the same alignment, right? So, for example, peacekeeping commitment item group, it's at the same level as peacekeeping operating cost. But if you do know well about budget, you know that this one, the cost, it's a child of the first one. So it's retrieving the information up-down, right? So the hierarchy is not exported. You will have to know that beforehand. That's my point. That usually this is happening more in finance and funds management, but in case that they create some sort of report in supply chain that has a hierarchy embedded, for example, fund centers. You see the hierarchy of the fund centers that you might find in Umoja BI, for example. let's say this demo, I think I'm logged out probably, but sometimes, let me go to the Fan Center. This is a hierarchy, right? If I drag and drop the Fan Center hierarchy, you see there's a hierarchy embedded. If for whatever reason we find a report, or even, let's see if I can export this one. I think it's much better if I can export only line charts and this part. It's okay. Let's see. Okay, here, see. Here in the analysis workspace, yes, you see that I see the Fan Center group here. There is some sort of hierarchy embedded because these lines are not in line, let's say, right? But in the Web Intelligence reports, when you export to Excel, all of them are within the same line in the column. So just don't be misled about all these things. Just only bear in mind that whenever you export to Excel, you have to be cautious in terms of the hierarchy, if there is some sort of hierarchy, and that the formulas are not being exported. That's the bottom line. But we do know, and we're emphasizing this because we do know that you guys export a lot from BI, and as long as you have clarity on these things, you will have no problem whatsoever. Let me, this report number 5. So exactly, this is the report that I was mentioning before, that sometimes in Web Intelligence reports, you can actually expand the hierarchy by clicking on these pluses, right? So whatever you do see in the report is whatever that's going to be exported. If for whatever reason I only see this report and I do not expand the hierarchy and I want to export to Excel, I will only see what I see in Webby, which is one only line. You see? Only one line. So rule of thumb, you export what you see in BI. So and here there is no I cannot double click, there is no hierarchy included here. Is peacekeeping commitment item group, this is whatever is being exported, because this is what I saw initially in BI. Then on the contrary, if I start expanding all these lines, and then I export to Excel, I will see all these things, but big cautious, only I will see everything exported, but within the same line. So I can lose the perspective and the visual of the hierarchy. Okay. So that's basically what I really wanted to touch upon in terms of Web Intelligence. Obviously, for more advanced users, you can just create from scratch much different views of Web Intelligence reports, but we do know that the majority of you first do not have the role and then the knowledge. So that will be for another type of academy, I believe, for more technical users, and that's something that our RDM or BI developers are doing here in Valencia as well. So that's what we wanted to show in terms of Web Intelligence reports. As we said, not much more functionalities besides the ones that we touched upon. We will go through different other reports, and let me go back to production, close this one. Going to documents. If we go to the folders here in the shared analysis area, you see that there are plenty of subfolders here, and as long as you are a power user, remember, if you're a power user, you can share your reports with other users by storing those reports in any of these folders. But you can, on top of that, create folders, right? I can just create a folder right now. But as there is no governance, really, not real governance within BI, all power users can, start doing things without even no one realizing, right? So I'm not going to create any folder or nothing close to that, but I want just to show to you that there is a folder called DFS-BI support where our colleagues in RDM have been creating reports based on the business process, right, in property management, travel, funds management, but then source to acquire. And here we do have several reports that we may want to take a look in Valencia, all of us, and that's what I think Sasha Murjanic, it's already worked with Juan, our main BI developer in Valencia, and some others. They did work together in some sort of reports that I think will be wise to take a look with the help of Sasha next week. So there, besides production itself, right, what you see in source to acquire here, besides all these reports, if you just navigate through the shared analysis, and more specifically 01 DFS BI support source to acquire, then you will be able to find some reports. Some of them, they do need still some maintenance because some data, it's been changed in the back end, and as long as these guys are not connecting the data sources, the data will not be properly reflected in the report. So we'll have to talk with them and see which ones are really well maintained and will give us accurate information. But we have information related to contracts, LVAs, and procurement, even end-to-end scenarios over here in this subfolder. Let me see, because I see some there's someone who raised hand.
Me, I think. Can you still hear us?
I see Sayed, yes. He's raised 3 times his hand.
I think it was because of the audio. He lost the audio.
Okay, perfect.
All the participants can still hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
No problem. Okay. So with this, we will close today's session. It is almost noon. Again, we thank you for your attention, your patience. As you saw, 2 of the 3 sessions in remote training were more devoted to BI. Eventually, it's what the end user usually it's more keen on start using rather than going again through the transactional reporting. But we will have room for that tomorrow morning. Yes, Kiran, we take note of that question, but we'll see that one on next week. We sent to you the WebEx, the YouTube link in case from yesterday's session. We will send to you today's link for today's session in YouTube whenever that's posted. Hopefully today, later. The exercise to be done and sent back to us was sent. In terms of BI, was sent to you yesterday along with the presentation. There is no like a particular exercise today for web intelligence reports because they are quite straightforward. Tomorrow we will send another exercise for transactional reporting. And then the link with the test to be done on Friday COB, that's the due date, hopefully will be shared tomorrow in the afternoon, okay? And basically you will be tested among all these things that you have seen, but with screenshots. And I said initially in the kickoff BTC that it was difficult. Well, in a way, it's difficult if you haven't ever entered into BI and you are not familiar with the tool. But if you are familiar with the tool, and I guess that these sessions are helping you to be familiar or get familiar with the tool, you will have no problem whatsoever. In any case, we have a support session this afternoon from 2 to 4 Valencia time. In case that you want to, it's an open session, so there is no particular agenda. In case that you want to go through the exercise or you have a specific questions related to BI. So having said that, that's all from my end. Cyril, over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. I think I'm looking at the chat. So no question, couple of observations, the accuracy of reports. Of course, this is supply chain data, so you assume, I think it should be accurate. But again, you will have time during the in-person session in Valencia to go through and maybe look a little bit at the number. So I think except that, everything is fine. And just want to thank you for your participation once again, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Cyril. See you guys tomorrow or this afternoon.
Yeah.
Bye.